There are a ton of ways of getting popular and nearly as numerous ways of getting rich, yet there are likewise boundless approaches broke. We should count down the 16 most moronic ways big names have transformed popularity and fortune into disappointment. Number 16. Dorothy Hamill. Dorothy Hamill was a hero professional skater during the 1970s. In the event that you're under 40, you could be pardoned for contemplating whether that even qualifies her as a very important person. Yet it's difficult to make sense of how much greater of an arrangement figure skating used to be in 1993. Toward the finish of Dorothy Hamill's profession, a survey by the AP observed that she was tied for the most famous competitor in America, destroying GOATs like Michael Jordan and Wayne Gretzky. The ice capades are where individuals would go to observe favorable to professional skaters put on shows when they were finished contending. Dorothy Hamill was their main event during the 80s, yet figure skating was at that point declining in prominence, and the ventures failed in 1991. So Dorothy Hamill took the cash she'd produced using figure skating and purchased the organization in 1993. However, she was unable to turn the show around. The crowd that was left for ice shows needed to contend with Disney. For the time being, the ice capades were going down, and they took Dorothy Hamill with them. Hamill failed the following year, and to take care of her obligation, she sold the ice capades to TV preacher Pat Robertson for $10 million. Could you accept he was unable to save the ice covers? One way or the other, the organization shut down in 1997. Yet Dorothy Hamill is a long way from the main very important person whose ventures didn't work out. And essentially, she put her cash into a business. She realized something about number 15. Burt Reynolds. Burt Reynolds is one of America's greatest stars of the 1970s. He turned into a Hollywood sex image, with jobs in films like White Lightning and Smokey and the Crook. He was casted a ballot Hollywood's most bankable star from 1978 to 1988. In his prime, Reynolds was worth about $60 million. He was bringing in a great deal of Hollywood cash and carrying on with a day-to-day existence to coordinate. Reynolds purchased houses like a few big names. He had no less than 2 in Beverly Slopes, 1 in Georgia, and a waterfront home and a farm in Florida. Yet his different endeavors weren't generally so bankable as his films. He and an accomplice put resources into a calf network called P.O. People, which is taking a risk if you were to ask me. The name truly wasn't the issue, however. Yet individuals could have done without the food. Reynolds put resources into additional dodgy calves to escape the opening he dug with P.O. People. And he and his accomplice wound up losing $20 to $30 million with his film profession on the Wayne Reynolds funds continued to go downhill after CBS brought in a $4 million credit they'd given him. Reynolds defaulted on some loans in 1996. Our next Hollywood celeb chose to fail only once, for suckers number 14. Francis Portage. CPA Francis Passage Kappa is known as one of the incomparable Hollywood chiefs. He's likely generally renowned for making every one of the 3 Guardian motion pictures and End Times Now. However, the explanation he's on this rundown isn't such a lot of the manner in which he failed as the way that he continued to make it happen. It began when Kappa began making a film called One from the Heart through his creation organization, Zoto. His vision for the film got increasingly aggressive, and the spending plan for which began as an unassuming lighthearted comedy expanded from $15 to $26 million. However, the film just made $60 million in the cinema world. After 2 years, Kappa declared financial insolvency. Whenever he first continued to make motion pictures to take care of his obligations, he was unable to stretch out beyond them. He needed to refile for liquidation, yet wound up with nearly $100 million in the red by 1990. That is the point at which he petitioned for financial protection the third and last time, auctioning off piece of his creation organization to clear his obligation. Ideal. That is it. At 84 years of age, he's actually making motion pictures, and he's making them as large as could really be expected. He says, "My procedure is to simply go for broke." Our next passage is one more Hollywood star with a gun. For broke style number 11, Nicholas Enclosure. The unique Nicholas Enclosure is known for doing his absolute best in each job, as a matter of fact, for a decent piece of his profession. Seeing Nicholas Enclosure on a banner was very nearly an assurance of a wild exhibition in a generally dark film. That was no fortuitous event. Confine composed his fame during the 90s to a flighty celebrity way of life, spending his $150 million fortune on extravagances like Tyrannosaurus skulls, an assortment of intriguing creatures including 2 cobras and an octopus, and a $4 million tormented manor. He likewise put vigorously in land, and while the real estate market fell in 2007, he was without a friend in the world. He wound up owing $6 million in local charges, and in 2009, his house was dispossessed by phantoms. With everything taken into account, he never entirely failed. However, that was the beginning of a period in Enclosure's profession, where he would have taken basically any job to cover the bills, including 29 direct-to-video motion pictures. You've most likely never at any point knew about number 12. Tom Insignificant. Assuming you thought Hollywood agreements were obscure, have you caught wind of the music business? It's normal for artists to have gigantic hits, however, end up somewhere down underwater to their record marks in view of their agreement terms. That is what has been going on with rocker Tom Frivolous. He had 2 hit collections as of now. However, he understood the mark that purchased his agreement was taking 90% of the benefits. He says the name was trading him like a piece of meat. I don't have the foggiest idea how frequently you can exchange a piece of meat, yet he was tired of it. Yet, how was unimportant going to escape his agreement? Tom Frivolous understood that assuming you fail, the courts get to modify all of your business courses of action. He chose to finance his next collection without anyone else and make it as costly as possible. He blew through a portion of $1 million recording the collection, and afterward didn't deliver it. All things considered, he sought financial protection. His record name understood this would allow an appointed authority an opportunity to modify their agreement. They were apprehensive in the event that the stunt work, different performers would attempt it as well, so they privately addressed any remaining issues and offered him a vastly improved agreement with control of his distributing freedoms and an insured payout. Yet Tom Unimportant is the just celeb on this rundown, who drove himself into Chapter 11, deliberately number 11. Toni Braxton. Toni Braxton has been one of the greatest names in R&B, winning 7 Grammy grants since she came on the scene in 1990. However, that achievement hasn't been a smooth ride. Her singing hits ended up being more straightforward than getting compensated for them in 1996. Braxton's tune Unbreak My Heart burned through 11 weeks at number 1 on the Hot 100, and the collection went octuple platinum. However, she sued her record organization, saying she wasn't getting her fair cut. She lost the claim, however, and needed to petition for financial protection that very year. After 10 years, she had a show going for quite a long time in Las Vegas and was wanting to move it along until 2010. However, she needed to suddenly stop it in 2008. And she was determined to have a hard condition. Luckily, Toni Braxton had purchased protection from the well-known organization Lloyd's of London to cover the deficiency of pay from only that sort of misfortune. Sadly, Lloyd's of London told her they wouldn't pay out. She sued them, and they sued her for not offering her full clinical history to them. Before she took out her strategy, Braxton wound up in a considerably more profound opening than she began with, and needed to seek financial protection once more. Number 10, Marvin Gaye. Ruler of Soul. Marvin Gaye is another R&B star who followed an alternate way to becoming penniless. Gaye is known as the alluring voice behind such night-out mixtape backups as We Should Get It On and Sexual Mending. So ironically, heartfelt difficulties put him on this rundown. Marvin Gaye and his most memorable spouse isolated in 1973. In 1975, he was behind on installments to his ex as much as $600,000, and he needed to seek financial protection to make things dependent upon her. He vowed to give his significant other the eminences from his next collection, which he called the collection. My dear, our next passage on this rundown is a man who needs no segue. Number 9, Kevin Bacon.